Hi there, I'm Cathi Barker from Software Solutions, and I want to show you how to use the what if analysis features in Microsoft Excel. In this video, I'd like to show you how you use the scenario manager, how you use the solver for optimization, and how you use functions like network days in some product. Now, a friend of mine owns a crayon company, and so I want to optimize her profit. So this is the main character here. I'm wanting to optimize the profit given how many crayons she produces in a given month. Now, what I have to start with is I have to work with the figures that I know she had for last month. So what I know is last month was July. In fact, the 1st of July to the 31st of July. So I've put these two dates in here, and then I've used a net workdays function in this cell to work out the number of workdays. Now, I know that they don't work weekends. There also were no holidays in that particular month. So the number of workdays between the 1st of July and the 31st of July using the net workdays function is a total of 21 days. I know that her staff work an 8-hour day, and I know that she has 30 staff. So when I come over to here, I just simply do a simple multiplication that says grab the 30 staff, multiply by 8 hours a day, and multiply by the fact that there are 21 days in that particular month. So her maximum capacity for that month in terms of hours of labour is 5,040. Okay, so that was part of the equation. Now over here I collected some information about July. For example, she sells 6 products. She sells white crayons, yellow crayons, blue crayons, red crayons, green crayons, and black crayons. And she sells them in kilos. So she sold 150 kilos of white crayons, 160 kilos of yellow crayons, and 170 kilos of blue crayons. So these are the kilos of crayons she sold, and these are the values I can change to optimize the profit. But I need to know what's the best combination of kilos to create to get my profit maximized. So then I need to look at hours per kilo. How many hours does it take of labor to produce a kilo of white crayons? Well, it takes 6 hours. How many hours does it take to create a kilo of yellow crayons? 5 hours. And how many hours does it take to create a kilo of blue crayons? 4. So here's the number of hours per kilo of labor that's required. Now, raw materials are needed. I have to have 3.2 kg of raw material in order to create a kilo of white crayons. And I need 2.6 kg of raw materials in order to create yellow crayons. So my raw material are listed here. The raw material, the kilo of raw materials required to create a kilogram, the hours of labor required to create a kilogram. So then I want to know, well, how much do you sell your white crayons? If you sell them by a kilo, how much is a kilo of white crayons? $12.50. How much is a kilo of yellow crayons? $11. And how much is a kilo of blue crayons? $9. And then I want to know, well, how much does it cost you to produce a kilo of white crayons? $6.50. So then that leads me to determine the profit. The profit is simply equal to how much you sell it for minus the cost of producing it. So if we sell it for $12.50 and it costs us $6.50, we make a profit of $6, and I've simply filled that to the right. So that's the profit per kilo of white crayons, yellow crayons, blue, red, and so on. Okay. Now, last month we also investigated the demand. We had a demand of 960 kg of white crayons, 928 kgs of yellow crayons, and 1,041 kg of blue crayons were ordered. So that's the monthly demand. And that's pretty much the same. Profit's the same, cost the same, price the same, unless there's some sort of inflation adjustment. Raw materials, labour, pretty much all the same. What changes is just simply this. These are our changing cells. What changes is how much we produce of each type of product, and that affects our profit. So how do we work out the profit? Well, the profit would be 150 kgs times $6 per kg profit, plus 160 kg of yellow crayons times $5.30 profit per kg. So that times that, that times that, that times that, all added together. Now, rather than create a long formula that does that, we use a sum product function. And the sum product function basically looks at row 9, each value, and multiplies each pair with what's in row 2. So 6 times 150 plus $5.30 times 160 plus $5.40 times 170, and so on and so forth. Much quicker to write a subproduct, giving us a profit of $4,500. Okay, so that's how I calculate my profit. That's how I work out my work days. Now, we do have some constraints. I mentioned she has 30 staff and they work an 8-hour day. So that means the maximum number of hours available in that month is 5,040 hours. And she, in fact, only used 4,680. Now, I use the sum product function to work out the labour used as well. If I double-click this, basically I multiplied the number of kilos of each product created by the number of hours needed to create each product. So 150 times 6 plus 160 times 5 plus 170 times 4 plus 180 times 3. So use your sum product again. And as far as raw material, again, sum product. 150 kilos times 3.2 kilos of raw material to produce 150 kilos. 150 times 3.2 plus 160 times 2.6 plus 170 times 1.5. So that's our raw material used and our labour used. Now, the raw material must be less than 1,600 kgs. That's the most amount of raw material we can house. We can't accommodate any more raw material than that number of kgs. So whatever optimisation we do to the profit, we can't exceed 1,600 kgs of raw material because we've got nowhere to stick it. And we can't exceed these hours either. So as far as raw material, we use 1488, but we have the capacity of 1,600. So I've just done a simple division here. I've just divided 1488 and said basically we're 93% of capacity of raw materials. We could take another 7% of raw material and house that. Okay, so that's how I've laid this out. I'm just going to save this. Now, I want to save this as a scenario first of all. These are my original values, and I need to be able to compare them with different scenarios. So if we go to data and what if analysis, there is a scenario manager. And if I click that, I can say I want to add a scenario, and I just want to call it original values. Original values, changing these cells is how we change the scenario, and okay. And those are the values that are currently in those cells. So I'm just going to go okay. And I've created original value, so I can close. All right, now let's employ the solver. I'm going to click on this cell, though it's not vital, but it's E12 that I'm wanting to optimize, the profit. That's my target cell. So I go to data and I choose solver. Now, if you don't have solver, you need to add it in. So go to file, go to options, go to add-ins, go to go, tick solver and analysis pack as well if you don't have the scenario manager. Tick analysis toolpack and solver add-in and okay. And those will be available under data. I'll go cancel. So now if I go to data and I go to solver, this is where I say E12 is the profit. That's my target cell, my objective, and I want to maximize it. I could minimize my profit, but I want to maximize my profit. It says by changing what variable cells. Well, my changing cells are these. So I'm going to click in here and I'm going to choose these cells. Maximize my profit in E12 by changing the values in E2 to J2. And I could leave it at that, but I'm not. I'm going to add some constraints. So I'll go add. My first constraint is that these values here, the amount of labor used and the amount of raw material used, let me select both of those, must be less than or equal to what's available. I can't exceed 5040 hours of labor because we don't do overtime, and I can't exceed 1600 kgs because we can't house it. So I'm going to choose these two cells. That's my first constraint, so I add that. Now my second constraint is I don't want to produce more crayons than the demand I have for crayons. I don't want to outstrip demand, otherwise I've got excess product being wasted, and again I'm having to house it. So let's say that these cells here cannot exceed demand. And I'm going to add that. And then I'm just going to cancel. And there's my two constraints there. Now there are a variety of solving methods, and they're listed here. The GRG nonlinear engine is for a smooth nonlinear solve. The Simplex LP is for a linear solve. And that's the one I'm going to go for. So I'm going for a Simplex LP, and I'm just going to go solve. Now this little window pops up, and it basically says that solver found a solution. All constraints and optimality conditions were satisfied. Brilliant. So I want to save that scenario, and I'm going to give it a name, and the name I'm going to call it is optimal solution, and OK. And so then I can see that the optimal profit is 6,950 compared to, if I restore the original values and OK, 4,504. So there's my original values. If I go to what if in my scenario manager, I can then switch to my optimal solution and show that. So I've made an improvement of nearly $2,500 profit. But how was that achieved? Looking up here at the kilos of crayons that I produce of each colour, I'm basically producing a lot of red, half as much blue, and no white and no yellow and no green and no black. So it's basically say specialise in your blue and your red because that's where you're going to make the most profit. But let's say I don't want to specialise. And let's actually look down here. I'm maximising my labour. I'm optimising my labour. And I'm pretty much maximising my raw material too because I'm at 98%. 1572 is 98% of 1600. So I'm operating very, very well. But there's a danger in only producing two colours. I want to be able to say that I've got this whole 6 products covered. And we do get the odd ad hoc. So I want to be able to keep at least 50 kgs of white, yellow, green and black in any given month. So I need another constraint. Let's just go close. Let's go back to solver. Let's add another constraint. I need this value here to be greater than or equal to 50 kgs. Add. I need this value here to be greater than or equal to 50 kgs. Add. This value also. And this value as well. And then cancel. So I've got now a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 constraints. I now want to see if it can solve that and what that will do to my 6950. It says that it can solve it, and it has found a solution, and all constraints and optimality again were satisfied. And instead of 6950, I've got 6445. So I've made a slight hit, but what I've achieved is 50 kgs of white, yellow, green and black, as well as optimizing my profitable red and optimizing my blue crayons. I'm maximizing my hours, and I'm at 96 instead of 98% of my raw material capacity. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to save that scenario and call it minimum of 50 kg and OK. I'll then restore my original values and OK. And so I'm back to the original, which was actually the optimal solution. But now I can go to my what if analysis, my scenario manager, and say, look, give me my original values, show them. So my original profit for July was 450. But if we remain on the same trajectory, then my optimal is 6950, or my minimum 50k is 6445. Let's close this. Let's change this from the 1st to the 8th. And how many days in August? 31. So let's change this to 31/8. All right, so now let's go and solve this with 23 days. Solve. Save the scenario. This is August. Minimum 50 kg. And OK. And OK. So we could make 6858 in August. There's extra 2 working days. We're at 100% capacity of raw material, and we're at 100% capacity of labour. And that is going to give us a profit of 6858. Let's go back to the scenario manager. This minimum 50 kg, I'm just going to edit that and call that July. So you can easily go back and change the names of your months or your scenarios. I might decide, actually this optimal solution, I don't need this, I'm going to delete. So we've added scenarios, deleted scenarios, edit scenarios. And what if I want to produce a summary? First of all, I'm going to show my original values, show. So there's my 4504. Then I produce a summary. And let's say I want to see a summary of this cell, comma, this cell, comma, this cell, comma, this cell. And even, comma, this cell. And OK. So what we now have is a summary. And this is what was happening with our profit. We can see our original profit, a minimum of 50 kg in July, a minimum of 50 kg in August. We could see what was happening here with our percentage of resource utilization. We could see what was happening here with our raw material. And we could see here what was happening with our labour. We could even edit this and just say labour. We could say here raw material, and then material utilization, and we could even say profit here. So it creates a summary of all the various scenarios so that you can compare, and this could even be deleted, you can compare the various scenarios. And then back to our product mix. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you've understood how powerful the scenario manager can be, how powerful Solver can be, how you want to set a target cell by changing other cells, but also defining multiple constraints to maximize or optimize that particular figure. Net work days function is very useful, and some product is very useful. My name is Cathi Barker from Software Solutions. Please like or subscribe my video so I know what is appealing to you. Take care. See ya.